Hi, friends! Join us as we dive into the themes, metaphors, and foreshadowing of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. With both a spoiler and spoiler-free analysis, there's something here for everyone. We are your hosts, Leah,
Sarah, Tabby,
and whether you're a new viewer or a longtime fan, welcome to Becoming Buffy.
Hey guys, welcome back to Becoming Buffy. Today we are talking about gingerbread. Okay, so I have to be 100% honest because when am I not? But I think this is the weakest episode of season 3, and I don't really like this episode very much.
It's definitely a popular opinion. I don't hate this episode. I think it's fun only because I haven't seen it a ton.
Yeah, I don't know. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, this episode is just really funny, and it's just got like funny moments."
Funny?
Yeah, that's what a lot of the reviews and stuff I was reading. I don't really find this episode very. I mean, it's got funny moments, but I think this episode is really dark.
I hate this episode. I'm not even. It just it gives me the creeps. I hate the vibes of it.
It doesn't feel like a Buffy episode.
The weird, creepy spinoff to Hansel and Gretel freaks me out. And then it's just also the fact that again Joyce isn't herself in this episode.
Yeah,
it's guys, can we get one episode where Joyce is Joyce, please?
It feels like a step back in some ways.
Yeah, we keep making these huge strides forward with Joyce's character, and then these things happen. I'm like, okay, how many times is Joyce going to be under a spell? And yeah, it's just very frustrating.
I think I'm more mad with the ending of the episode. I wish that we had a conversation with Buffy and Joyce at the end, where Joyce is like apologizing or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's really interesting. Like Passion the Nerd talked about this, and I was like, oh yeah. When he mentioned it, he was like, the way the episode is actually filmed is it was filmed with the camera on the shoulder, so it leads to more like shakier shots, and it makes you feel like it's a documentary style. And they did that intentionally because they're trying to point out the hypocrisy between media and their views on violence and prejudice and all this other stuff. But it's also meant to make you feel like you're actually there. But then they also made the episode darker a little bit too. So there's a reason why we feel a little bit like, oh, this feels different, because the way it was shot and the way it was colored is intentionally very different, which made me feel a little bit more validated. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. This episode does feel different for a reason. All right, so written by Jane Espenson and also Thania, I think that's how you say her name, Thania St. John, but she never writes for another Buffy episode ever again, and she's only co-credited with writing this episode, so it's very interesting. Directed by James Whitmore Jr., and it aired January 12th, 1999. The opening credits on this episode finished a half second earlier than usual, slightly trimming the end theme's final note. So if you watch the episode, it cuts off slightly, just very slightly. And I do not know why they did that. Maybe time constraints, but I'm not sure why half a second would really matter in the overall thing. The episode kind of carries on the season 3's themes of fairy tales. I mean, that's not it's every single episode, but we had Beauty and the Beasts, and then we've had a play on it was in season 2.
Well, I mean, season 2, I was about to say Heckle and Jide, right?
Jacqueline.
I have never seen that. I don't even know what that is. I literally have no idea. I'll rewind the tape.
Yeah, just cut that out. Start over.
No, I don't care.
But they reference Jack and the Beanstalk. They obviously Hansel and Gretel.
Well, and then there's a Frankenstein-ish episode too, which is the same episode.
Yeah, Some assembly required. And that's just kind of what the Buffyverse does. It takes fairy tales and things that are, about children and to children.
Oh, and there's one coming up too that kind of has a take on one as well. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder why. Maybe it's the whole break between childhood and reality, and the twist between what is innocent is now kind of you see it in its own light. That's interesting, actually.
Well, we talked about it in Beauty and the Beasts, how parents used to tell fairy tales to their children as a way of teaching morality. And so in this sense, this is Joss Whedon and Marty Noxon and all the writers' way of telling fairy tales, I say in quotation marks, to the adolescents, the children that are watching the show. This is their take on morality and all that stuff through the eyes of a show about adolescence, which is kind of cool. So they're using fairy tales to like, they're subverting the genre in order to retell the stories.
Well, yeah, what I was about to say too is like you also view things differently as you grew up too. So it's like you hear these romanticized stories of like, even just a good example of this is like Disney's adaptations of a lot of fairy tales. And then you read the grim storytelling of it and you're like, this is a lot more dark than I thought it was going to be, you know?
Buffy's versions definitely feel a lot more Grimm's fairy tale-esque than Disney-esque.
Yes.
Especially the fact that there's not always a happy ending.
So I never put that together, that this is like the season other than like 1 and season 2 where they really do that. Interesting.
Yeah, season 3 really leans into that. Although I will say there's some in season 4 as well and season 5. Like they do it all throughout really the entirety of the show, but they always have some sort of subversion of the genre and some twist.
I love that though. I love
too.
when shows do that. I think it's so fun.
I agree.
Like I was such a slut for like Once Upon a Time when it first came out. I was like, I love this. And then it kind of got a little soapy for me. I was like, this is a little much. Everyone's dated everyone.
Which, okay, so excellent segue, Tabby. But speaking of Once Upon a Time, Emma Caulfield, who played Anyanka in The Wish, played the witch in the episode of Hansel and Gretel in Once Upon a Time.
Oh, she did? I could totally see her being that person.
Yeah,
no way.
isn't that cool?
She did a good job because she freaked me out.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yep, it's kind of cool. This episode has a few things that is going for it. I think it restores Xander and Oz's friendship. I think that's one of the big things. Like, at least shows that they're able to like do something together.
Coexist.
And coexist is a good word. It reintroduces the mayor back into the main plot because we have not seen him in a couple episodes. Kind of reminds us that he's there, that he's still working behind the scenes. And the fact that the mayor doesn't step in just reinforces his anti-youth agenda that we saw in Band Candy, that we saw back in Faith, Hope, and Trick. Like, he's just very much for the, I say in quotations, adults, even though, kind of not really.
Which is kind of interesting. I mean, to my knowledge, this is not spoiling anything. If it is,
I'll cut it out if it is.
But I don't understand why the master is so obsessed with not having anything to do with the youth and only the adults, because I feel like if there's anyone you want on your side, it's really the youth, because like A, they have more agile bodies, so like they can fight for you, and also B, it's just like they're more easily corruptible, I feel like.
I think there's a sense of they're threatened by them. Like the older generation tends to be threatened by the passion and energy of the younger generation, and the younger generation tends to be frustrated by the older generation being stuck in their ways. And so I think the older generation gets threatened by that. Also, side note, every time you say youths, I think of Schmidt from New Girls, when he's like, youths.
You've seen New Girls?
Yeah, all the way through, man.
It's one of my favorite shows ever, man.
I love how there's always like 6 degrees of separation with Buffy, because then Zoe's sister's Emily, who starred with David Boreanaz in Bones.
Oh, yeah. I always think about that. There's always a connection with everything I watch. I'm like, sometimes I try to think about it. I'm like, how could I connect this to Buffy? And there always is.
I always play 6 degrees of separation from Buffy, and I can always get back there. But anyway, speaking of separation, I think one of my main beefs with this episode is that I think it detracts from the overall plot, in the sense that Faith is not here. We still don't know where she is, what's going on with her. We barely see the mayor. And here we are. This is episode, I want to say 11. Yeah, 11 of the series. And it's like,
yeah, it is.
Where's the overarching plot? We still don't know what's going on with the mayor. We still don't know what his goal is. And so it feels like we're going at a snail's pace with the plot.
It's because we're waiting for Eliza to be 18.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's what we're waiting on.
All right, so the tale of Hansel and Gretel is a great metaphor here of child abuse and abandonment. And we've talked before, again, about how fairy tales teach morality and all that stuff. Well, back when Hansel and Gretel was written, or at least as far back as we know, it was in a time when people were very poor, and people would often leave their children in the woods when they couldn't provide for them and they couldn't give them food. And in the episode, we see the adults as the ones who are supposed to take care of and provide for their children, and they end up turning on them in fear. Also, this is really cool. The concept of the oven or the fire inside of Hansel and Gretel, because the whole thing is the witch tries to cook the kids inside of the oven, but then you have in the episode, you have everybody burning them at the pyre. It's fire is a representation of the womb. It's warm. It cooks. It nurtures. It takes care of the children and the babies. It's supposed to be a symbol of parental protection and care and love that's now being weaponized and turned against their offspring. So even inside Hansel and Gretel, you have that whole concept of the witch burning the children as a metaphor of like parents turning on their children. Here you have the mothers and fathers burning those girls at the stake, and it's supposed to represent like what's supposed to be nurturing is actually weaponizing, which I thought was really interesting. So obviously there's a couple things that's being referenced here. There's the Salem witch hysteria that occurred in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692, where you had all those men and women that were accused of witchcraft.
This is kind of a side trail, but the way that the Salem witch trials have supplied so many shows and movies
Seriously,
with
though,
like storylines, they should be paying them money. Like, I could name at least 5 shows or movies that use Salem witch trials.
Okay, do it.
Okay.
Name 5.
WandaVision.
I'll give you one.
WandaVision.
I was about to say WandaVision.
Then you have Vampire Diaries.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Buffy.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Mm-hmm.
And then you
Charmed.
have, Charmed. And that's 5.
Is it in Charmed?
Oh yeah, they talk about the Salem witch trials. I don't know if they're like direct descendants, but they definitely talk about it at some point.
So that's 5. And I bet you I could find more if I actually thought about it.
I'm sure Riverdale probably talks about it at some point.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sure.
sure.
Yeah. They talk about
Yeah.
everything. They use everything around them to be relevant.
Well, Riverdale's also in the same universe as Sabrina, so
dude, oh, it is?
they had a crossover episode.
No way.
It's called
No, the
Riverdale.
more? I've never seen an episode of Riverdale, but I love just hearing about the modern stuff that's happening in the newer seasons because it makes me die laughing.
I've
I'm
only
like,
seen the
why
first
is this
season.
still on?
Yeah, I'm convinced that the cast is being held hostage. They don't want to be there. It just seems like a fever dream. So this episode is also based heavily on the Satanic Panic of the 1980s through the 1990s. So according to Wikipedia, the underpinnings for the contemporary moral panic were found in a rise of 5 factors in the years leading up to the 1980s. The establishment of fundamentalist Christianity and the founding and political activism of the religious organization, which was named the Moral Majority, the rise of the anti-cult movement, which accused abusive cults of kidnapping and brainwashing children and teens, the appearance of the Church of Satan and other explicitly Satanist groups, which added a kernel of truth to the existence of satanic cults, development of social work or child protection fields and their struggle to have child sexual abuse recognized as a social problem. Isn't that insane? Back in the 1980s, 1990s, they were still struggling to recognize child sexual abuse as a social problem. Insanity.
Jeez.
That's so sad.
Yep. And then the 5th thing was the popularization of post-traumatic stress disorder, repressed memory, and the corresponding survivor movement. So this is back during like people are starting to recognize that mental health is an issue, at least in the extreme situations and cases. I feel like only now are people starting to recognize that, hey, like mental health is something we all struggle with and all have to work on.
Mm-hmm.
But the catalyst for this entire satanic panic movement was a book called Michelle Remembers. It was written by Canadians Michelle Smith and psychiatrist Lawrence Pazder. It's been discredited, but the book was written in the form of an autobiography presenting the first modern claim that child abuse was linked to satanic rituals. So full disclosure here, you know, we all remember, oh, you can't read Harry Potter, like, you know, all these things have witchcraft and like all that stuff. That's echoes of the satanic panic. It's really fascinating, but it was greatly helped by the rise of conspiracy theories and what we would now call as fake news. In 1985, Patricia Poling joined forces with psychiatrist Thomas Radecki, you guys are going to laugh, director of the National Coalition on Television Violence, to create BADD, BADD. And you know what it stood for? Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah, of course, that satanic game.
But seriously, a lot of people literally thought that you would be like invoking the devil and stuff if you played Dungeons and Dragons, if you
Darn you, Harry
I
Potter.
know, right? Down with Harry Potter. So BADD saw role-playing games generally and Dungeons and Dragons specifically as satanic cult recruitment tools, inducing youth to suicide, murder, and satanic ritual abuse. Other alleged recruitment tools included heavy metal music, educators, child care centers, and television. So, you know, Tabby and Leah, you guys, those educators.
Mm-hmm.
This episode is a heavy criticism of censorship, mob mentality, and prejudices against people with alternative lifestyles, as well as a criticism of the hypocrisy of parents not allowing their kids to read, watch, listen to something because of prejudice, yet the hypocrisy of them being completely uninformed about whatever it is they're banning their kids from, participating in. And it's really sad because you see that through Willow's mom, you see that through Joyce. These parents that know absolutely nothing about something, but they're listening to what other people are saying, and they are forming opinions about stuff about which they have absolutely no idea about. And I think this episode is just really an interesting one to watch in light of the amount of fake news we see going on in our world today and the amount of uproar we have on both sides and all sides. It's so interesting how you have conspiracy theories and things like that just rise up because people are afraid. So I don't know. What do you guys think of like the deeper themes of this episode?
I think it's very accurate
Applicable.
to a lot of what we see today.
Yeah.
I think that people, when they're scared, they want to feel safe. And I think a way of feeling safe is finding one big evil. And I think when you find one big evil and you find people that agree with you and you all are able to just kind of form together, you feel safe because there's power in numbers, whether or not you're right or whatever, which I think is very accurate to times today, which is like whether or not you're right, if people are just siding with you, then you feel powerful and you feel like you're right. And because you're scared, you'll just do whatever because you want to be in control. I just think it's crazy how a show that was made like 20 years ago has an episode that is very accurate to how people react today, which is maybe why I hate this episode so much.
But I think it's also true because it's like if people feel a little bit better about how horrible the world is if they can fix one thing. And so if they see something horrible happening and if everyone latches on together and something gets fixed, they feel a lot better and there's some hope there. I mentally kind of titled this episode like misplaced concern. It's not wrong that they feel this way. It's just that they will latch onto it and be very blinded by their passion for it when you have to think like outside the box and think like what's the main thing? Like what can we tangibly change, I guess? Like what is realistic?
We kind of talked about it a little bit with Dee on the Amends spoiler episode, but Wish, Amends, and Gingerbread are kind of a trilogy of sorts in that they just kind of discuss the same theme, which is the meaning of human existence, how we fight every day because it's the right thing to do. The Wish taught the audience this. Amends was for Angel, and Gingerbread, I feel like, is for Buffy.
All right, so let's just jump in because this episode is quite a chaotic mess. So Buffy's patrolling. Joyce comes and is like, I love how she's like, I want to see you work and get in action.
Like it's, a sporting gig. And she's like, I'm here to watch you play volleyball. Thanks,
and
Mom.
she like brings snacks. She's like eating and like Buffy's like fighting the vamp.
This is so weird. So weird.
I know.
Well, she sees the banker from,
that part
week.
Was funny. She's like, Mr. Sanderson?
But then she's like, Mr. Sanderson, whatever. But children are dead. Like, that was something I thought was interesting that Angel points out later.
True.
He's like, or no, it was Buffy who points it out. She's like, but Mr. Sanderson, like, his life is equally as valuable too,
I mean, it's different when it's like they're a walking corpse and they're evil now. But then like seeing their like lifeless frame on the floor is a bit like jarring. Especially as children. I understand, but it's also like, like Mr. Sanderson probably has family.
Mr. Sanderson was innocent at
one
one point
about
too.
Him. Yeah, literally.
Justice for Mr. Sanderson. He's the new Ampada.
I died laughing though when that happened. I was like, that's funny. And then this part was so like, I just forgot I was watching a Buffy episode because
it's dark.
Like the cornery
it's
like
terrifying.
pictures that they were taking. And I was like, oh, like it's a bit rough.
Well, the scene was really interesting because Buffy kind of takes the adult role in the scene. She's the one talking to the cops. She's the one comforting Joyce. She says, I'm sorry you had to see that, which is very interesting because that's something that a parent normally protects their child from. And this is not the first time we've had this like the roles kind of shifted when it comes to Buffy and Joyce. Like we had it in Band Candy. We've had it multiple times in other episodes. And I always get kind of sad when I see it happen because I'm like, I know Joyce cares deeply about Buffy, and I wish we just saw more of her role as a mom. Like I just think about, the end of Innocence,
What's hard about this episode is Joyce's initial reaction is Joyce.
Yes.
And that's actually her. Like her,
right.
The beginning of this episode where she's hurt and she's like, Buffy, those were kids. And like, that's Joyce, and it's beautiful to see her empathy and to see that. But then what frustrates me is later on in the episode when it's like she's now enthralled.
Right.
And so it's like it's more of an extreme.
It's the cookies
reaction.
all over again.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
the relationship with Joyce in the beginning seasons are such whiplash because you're like, I know this isn't Joyce, but it's like I'm really trying to hold on to the sweet Joyce moments I know are Joyce,
Yeah.
and then you keep handing me these episodes where she's enthralled or like under the influence or
Right.
whatever you want to call it, and you're like mad at her. And I hate that they never really explain about what exactly. If she was like actually under a spell or if she just was influenced by these dead people. Because I was like, if she's just being influenced, I'm sorry, but if I was seeing dead people, there's no way they'd convince me to try to kill Leah or you. Like,
It's
it
definitely
makes no sense.
it's definitely some sort of a spell because the moment that the glamour is broken and it's the big monster, like Joyce snaps out of it and goes, "Oh, Buffy!" Like she recognizes what's happening in that moment. So it's definitely some sort of a spell. Christine Sutherland says this. She says, one of the things we talked about early on was the possibility of an episode where Joyce is possessed and becomes the mother from hell. And I just thought that would be really interesting to explore and do, but I guess that hit the floor and got cut somewhere along the line. I feel like they just spread it out amongst like 4 to 5 different episodes.
Yeah, I was
Joyce.
like, I think we've seen that before.
I'm like, that's not a huge stretch. When asked about Gingerbread, she said, I think the children's death touched her so deeply. You know, I think once you are a mother, you experience children's suffering so personally. So even though it was a spell, there was a lot of her own passion there for getting behind this and doing something. And because of the spell, she felt that what she was doing was the right thing and needed to be done and that somebody had to take a stand. So I think that kind of answers your question a little bit there. Like the spell just heightened Joyce's feelings about it and made it
and fear.
Yeah, and her fear and made her feel like what she was doing was right. She also said that when they were doing Gingerbread, the actor who played the demon was really funny, and she thought that her daughter would really like to see it. Her daughter, I think, was like 5 or 6 at the time. So she had her stop by, and she was like terrified by it, but she wasn't terrified at all by the mummies in Dead Men's Party. She thought they were really funny.
The dead people would have been the thing that would have like scared me.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then Buffy goes, you just need to try and calm down. Cuts to, you can't tell me to calm down.
Poor Giles. Poor Giles.
And I love catching like also new interactions in episodes, but like new outfits that I forget were a thing because this outfit in the library is adorable.
On Giles?
She has this little like, yes, Giles' outfit. The little tweed, you know, that we see every episode, the suspenders, which I eat up.
It hits
I love,
different in this episode. No, just kidding.
But if you guys notice, I don't know if you picked this up a little bit. I'm sure Leah probably did because she's a wardrobe geek. But like in the beginning of the episode, everyone kind of dresses like their normal selves, and then towards the end, it's a lot more muted browns.
No, I noticed that too. It felt like something that was like their wardrobe was almost like going back in time. Like they're not like obviously they're not like walking out in freaking medieval outfits, but it was like the color.
That'd be funny.
The color palette was very like more
Muted.
bland, and their outfits were more conservative. Like it just was very interesting.
What did you guys think about what Buffy says to Giles when she says, a group of human beings, someone with a soul did this, and then she says, okay, so while you're looking for the meaning of the squiggly mark, maybe you could turn up a loophole on the Slayers don't kill people rule. What were your thoughts on that? Do you think she's
I will
serious?
say this was the most interesting angle about the episode was the brief period where Buffy thinks that this is a human thing. And so it does cross that line of like, okay, where is Buffy's boundaries? Is she allowed to interfere on human matters when they're this grotesque and awful? Or, you know, does she have to stay in that Slayer line of only magical things? And it's just like, it was a very interesting thing to see. I personally don't think Buffy would have killed him. I think she would have probably whooped someone a little bit before, but then ultimately done the right thing. But I think that it's an interesting question of like, Buffy technically does have the power to really make some change, but is that her place?
I kind of view it like, and I love that they kind of discuss it a tad bit in this episode. I wish they went a little bit more into it. Maybe they will in the future, but I'm not opposed to the Slayer having to like intervene if like the law isn't doing anything about it, and maybe this person is being influenced by mystical stuff and or like is in cahoots with like demons or like, you know what I mean? If it kind of crosses the line over into like her area, and no one's doing anything and they really are harming and hurting people and it's a huge threat and the police isn't doing anything, I think it's completely in her jurisdiction to like kind of, you know, take out the garbage.
What if it's a superpowered being, a person with a soul? Like, we haven't dealt with that yet, you know? Like,
right.
Is she—
it's an interesting take.
Yeah, is she capable or able to actually kill them? I mean, the script says Giles looks at her closely. She's deadly serious. So Buffy's like actually willing to, at this point, kill a human being, which is very
I mean, I'm
interesting.
for it, which I know some people might disagree, but it's like, at this point, like a lot of those people, yeah, they're demons now, but they did have a soul. They have a form of someone who had a soul. And again, like, what if somebody, like, let's say, like the mayor, if he's normal and human, there's some sketchy stuff going on.
Right.
And if no one does anything about it, then she could kill him, right?
Yep.
Like, I really feel like I'd be like on board with that.
Right. Yeah. Hey, so burrito, this is a burrito.
He's like, damn straight.
I will say this episode had a lot of oddball pairings. You have Oz and Xander together. You have Cordelia and Giles together. And then you have, I guess, Buffy and Willow's not a huge
and Amy.
Yeah,
them,
Amy
though.
was there. But seriously, it just
and the
was
parents.
funny. Yeah, Joyce and like what's Willow's mom's name?
I don't even know. I just kept saying Willow's
Gloria,
mom. She's unimportant.
Sylvia, something like that. I don't know. It's so funny.
I love how like specifically male parental figures are never seen in the show.
Yeah, it's
never.
just Giles.
It literally is. And then those random 2 episodes like that we've seen so far with Hank, and he has been awful. So it's like we don't want anymore.
We haven't seen him in season 3.
Yeah, the whole awkward interaction between Xander and Oz and this entire episode is funny, but like this specific scene was so funny but so uncomfortable. I was watching, I was like, ew.
Yeah.
It's like I really shouldn't feel like I should be like imposing in this like interaction.
Yeah.
And then they go and sit down with Amy, and we're like, oh, Amy's here. Her dark hair is so much better. She looks stunning with dark hair.
So, fun fact, the script says nothing about that line that Xander says, or it was Xander or Oz that says, hey, nice hair or whatever. So, in the Watcher's Diaries, the interviewer asked Elizabeth Ann Allen, who plays Amy, if that part was ad-libbed or an ad. And she said that was definitely an ad. When I showed up on the set, I had done an independent feature film and they had cut my hair off and they had made it red. And when I walked on the set, they just took one look at me and they nearly had a heart attack. Joss walked right by me. David Greenwalt walked right by me. And it was like, hi, it's me. And they were like, oh my God. So going dark was my only alternative for being Fire Engine Red. And then she talked about how she had originally tested for the role of Buffy and they brought her back for Amy. And she says it was really funny because I went back in 4 times because the director of this particular episode, I think it's The Witch, just thought, well, I just don't think she could be mean. I kept saying to Joss, I don't think he knows what he's talking about, but he had a hard time. After my 4th audition for that character, they finally gave it to me and the director was great. He said, you've proven me wrong.
Which is so funny because I can literally only see her as mean.
Yeah.
I know. She did way too good of a job as the mom.
I know.
But then she talked about how the day before she did Gingerbread, she got hit by a car and she ended up having like scarring on her knees or like scabs on her knees and stuff. And that's why they filmed the scene in the cafeteria sitting down. That's why you see most of the scenes that she's in, with the exception of the very end one, she's sitting down because she was in a lot of pain at the time.
Oh, poor girl.
Yeah.
Well, she looks great.
I know. She looks
I don't know if you'll ever hear this, Elizabeth, but you looked really good.
Yeah.
Your hair is really beautiful. I like the dark look, and especially with her darker makeup. Also, the makeup, too. I forgot to talk about this. The makeup looks weird at the end of the episode with everybody. It just looks like Buffy has dark lipstick on. It's out of character.
Yeah, it was very different. It was very, very odd.
So Amy's sitting with them. And then Oz is like, oh, I haven't seen you all day. Where you been? Xander's like, not with me. You can ask anyone.
Oh, my word. Xander making everybody uncomfortable because he's uncomfortable.
Xander's like overcompensation to not feel guilty is very funny.
It's a little fun to see him squirm.
Although I will say, if I were Oz, I would find that suspicious.
Super sus? Yes.
Yes. I'd be like, okay, so you were together? But then they like shift topics, talk about Buffy's birthday next week. And then Willow's like shushing Xander and he's like, oh, come on, we just got a topic.
He's like trying to get away from the awkwardness of, yeah, I totally just cheated on your girlfriend, Oz, and now I'm trying to be your friend again.
In real life, they all would not hang out together, but I mean, it's fine.
I don't know, guys. I've seen some pretty very unhealthy dynamic friendships in high school. Like, I have really seen friendships like this or worse where they've like just gone through weird, awful stuff together. I'm like, why are you guys all still friends? Like, what on earth?
Yes, but were they healthy friend groups? I really feel like especially like Buffy and like Oz would not want to hang out with people like Xander after that.
Who knows?
I think they've talked about how Oz is going to have to accept that Xander has a piece of Willow, and I think that he is okay with them being friends. The thing is that Xander's so uncomfortable because he's the odd one out here. He's hanging out with Willow and Oz, and Willow and Oz are just doing their thing. So the fact that he feels uncomfortable is completely fixable. He could just like not hang out with them, you know?
Yeah. Buffy comes, tells him about the kids. And then Willow mentions how her mom didn't spend time with her, which I feel like...
Where did this come
like,
from?
we kind of get the sense... I know. I was like, we kind of get the sense that, like, it's kind of been like that, only because her and Xander always hang out, and it always seems to be, like, them hanging out at each other's houses, because I've always kind of viewed it as, like, they aren't really close with their families. At least we know Xander isn't, and so the fact that they hang out all the time together at each other's houses kind of makes sense to me. I don't know. I just kind of feel like there's a missed opportunity. We don't need to see their families. I just like talking about their home life a little bit more would have been kind of nice.
It's just interesting that we haven't really heard Willow be this explicit about her mother. We've heard her talk about her dad when, like, I think it was in Passion, or it was when they were putting up the crosses. Yeah, it was Passion, you know, and that she's Jewish, but we've never really heard her talk about her mom other than her cooking.
It's also just weird that we're now entering season 3 and we literally know like barely anything about Willow's family life.
I like how they kind of showed that it was like, oh, like mom doesn't spend time with me, and then as she's saying that, Joyce comes up behind them, which is interesting because I kind of, it's sad, but like it's there in this episode. Like it's not like I'm just trying to read into it, but it's like the whole point of like my parents don't listen to me and they only reprimand me for stuff I'm doing incorrect, which is hard. And it's like people only really intervene, toxic parents, not all parents. And we're not saying that like, you know, Joyce is like this always, but there is a underlying metaphor for parents like this, where it's like they don't really spend time with me, they don't really understand me, they don't really care unless they disagree, unless they have something to say. Or as we find out at the end of the episode, selective hearing. It's like she's saying like, mom, like I'm going through all these changes and yada yada yada, also I'm dating somebody, and then she like ignores everything, even stuff that she did wrong, and then has selective hearing and only wants to hang out and meet Oz.
Okay, this whole episode feels like a rehashing of Ted. I'm like, Ted came to the school, the whole thing with Joyce being under the influence. I'm just like,
it feels like Ted and Bewitched.
What?
Bewitched, bothered, and bewildered.
Bitched, bothered, and
like, it feels like those two episodes like mashed.
Keeping that
I
in.
have a stutter, guys. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Me too.
So Joyce is kind of, yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about the whole Ted thing. Ted is a way better episode than this one, though, for sure.
Agreed.
But like this whole like hallway scene with Joyce and Buffy, it's like, I don't know. I just like, I just didn't like it.
It's
I just like, she's like, it is. She's like, oh, do you not want your mom being here? And are you embarrassed? I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's also like, it's not weird for a high school student to not want their parent at their school. Like, I hate that whole like, do you not want me to be seen with you? It's like, that would be like if your child showed up to your work. Like,
and just hung out with you.
Yeah, just hung out with you. Like, you'd be a little bit like, okay, this is kind of my space. This is kind of my area. Like, you know, there's a time to play. Like, it's not about the person. It's about like the environment. It's like, dude, this is not bring your mother to like school day.
It feels a lot like the rehashing of Bad Eggs when she's like, you know, you have no mother, you hatched full grown out of a giant egg. Obviously, Bad Eggs has some very different themes, but it's like Joyce talks all the time about how like Buffy, you know, sucks the life out of her and she wants her own identity, but then here she is inserting herself into Buffy's own world. I mean, Joyce saying Mayor's even going to be there, now we'll get some action. It's once again, Joyce is underestimating Buffy and showing she doesn't really understand where Buffy's at or like what her role is as a Slayer. And I'm like,
But then also, like, her coming and watching her patrol once does not mean she's an expert on what Buffy has done or seen. So it makes me frustrated when she has a conversation later on where she says that it's, like, fruitless and that she's not really doing anything. She's just reacting to vampires.
well, I guess I never thought of it this way, but it could be Joyce's way of trying to help Buffy. Like she's trying to get other people in and
Could
have
be.
them like take responsibility and do things so it takes the burden off Buffy so Buffy can have a life of her own. Like I guess it kind of could be that way, but
But I mean, at the end of this conversation, she's like, "Oh, we're gonna have a vigil tonight." She's like, "Don't worry, not a lot of people are gonna be there." And then, of course, everyone and their brother is there at the vigil.
Literally the biggest gathering we've seen in seasons.
It's all the parents too, which makes absolute sense. Of course, when it has to do with like parental like issues, then all the parents come together. But then when their own kids are barely talking to them, they don't really seem to care at all.
Mrs. Rosenberg, hello, bunny. I'm like, what?
Oh, it's so sad. She's like mentions her short hair.
Oh my
and it's
gosh.
like literally like the beginning of January, right? Because like Buffy's birthday is in January, right? And so it's like been since August. That's like what, 5 months?
That's awful.
4 months?
That's
Yeah.
so bad.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Like that's not even like a little bad. That's she lives in your house.
Yeah,
Mrs.
that
Rosenberg.
quite
Come
possibly
on.
could be neglect, but
Mrs. Iceberg. I'm gonna call her Iceberg now.
Mrs.
So she called Buffy Bunny.
we have another awkward moment between Giles and Joyce.
He's like, yes, it's been
It's been
a while.
Not for a while. And then there's a rumor going around Mr. Giles, and he's like, rumor about us?
About us?
About what?
And then the mayor comes. This is so weird because we're seeing him as spectators, and he seems like very like melancholy, like he's really taking this in, like he's like kind of playing the mayor role. He goes up there and like shares like the speech. He's like, "We've sure had our share of misfortunes, but we're a good town with good people."
You're like, dude, literally shut up. So I just can't with it. Like, he is so creepy. I think he just scares me too because he's also just like an older white man, and it's just like disgusting. 'Cause it's like, no, I'm just saying,
True.
like,
It's true.
and he's like a politician, and so it's like beyond the fact that I know there's something else going on, he just is creepy.
He's a really good villain.
we just don't know what his motivations are. And so we've seen him try to literally sacrifice children. And so when he's up there talking about this, we're like, okay, what is your motive here?
That's true. I didn't even think about that with the babies.
Well, and if you think about it later on too, they're literally sacrificing the girls inside of the town hall. That's where the mayor's office and stuff is. And he doesn't
That's
step
true.
in. So it's like, is he
He's
behind
not even
a lot
there.
of this?
He probably is in his office knowing what's going on, not saying anything, just allowing them to do it.
He's like dying from smoke inhalation because they're deciding to burn people inside a building. Like, whose bright idea
He's like
was that?
he's looking at the cameras from his like desk up in his comfy office, and it's like, yeah, interesting. Popcorn.
Yeah, he's playing golf, watching it.
Yeah. And then Joyce has her speech where she's like, "Mr. Mayor, you're dead wrong." I laughed. I was like, okay.
Whoa, Joyce.
Okay, Joyce.
Let's channel that energy in a different direction. How about that?
And honestly, I will say, speaking on her speech, I actually agree with this speech. She's like, this is not a good town. How many of us have lost someone who just disappeared or got skinned or suffered neck rupture? How many of us have been too afraid to speak up? And then she's like, I was told to have everyone in silence. And she's like, but silence is this town's disease.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, this is a good speech. Again, it's misplaced concern.
Well, but
She's
it's also,
not
it's
wrong.
good until she brings up Slayers.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, girl,
Yeah.
don't drag your daughter into this. Like, she's not on the
Yeah.
bad side of town. She's on the good side.
Well, I think what she was trying to say by that is that, like, everyone's kind of taking the reins other than us, which I don't mind her saying.
And it's and ironically, if she wasn't motivated by fear and prejudice, she probably would be a really helpful asset in trying to mobilize people to do things. Because, I mean, let's face it, if people actually knew how to weaponize themselves and to fight back, Buffy's job would be a lot easier.
Right.
So,
and you saw how quick it was for everyone to talk about it?
Yeah. I mean, partially because it
town?
was motivated by the demon and the fear and stuff. But that's the clever thing about this episode is that Joyce is not wrong. And they do a good job of showing that the people are motivated by good things, even if it is fear.
Exactly.
But that's what makes this whole thing complicated is that bad things can happen in the name of good things, you know?
Sure. Yep. It's so sad because this episode really could be interesting. I just really am upset with the execution of a lot of it.
Yeah.
Because I think it delves into some really interesting topics.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think maybe it is creepy too, just because we've seen this happen a lot.
Yeah.
This is a very real thing.
Yeah. Giles's face is hilarious. I don't think I've seen him look this shocked and horrified ever. You could tell he's like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm. And I love this little like cut back because she mentions like the town belongs to monsters and witches and slayers, yada yada yada. And then the next scene is like you see like witches with like the symbol that we saw on that kid's hands, and then it's like, oh, you see Amy, and then a good solid minute of them panning over all of like the ingredients for like the ritual and stuff, and then you see Willow, and you're like, wait a minute.
Right. It's so weird.
And for an episode of introducing random characters, I really feel like they did a good job of kind of like introducing some like random side characters end up playing a part like that other like, if he's a male, would it be a Wiccan?
He'd be a warlock. Witches are girls, warlocks are the guys.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Because technically Ethan Rain is a warlock.
Okay. And this poor kid, I'm like, aw.
Michael, man, I feel bad for him. Okay, fun fact though. So when the camera pans out of Willow and Amy's coven, and it shows like the symbol and stuff, you can hear the faint laugh of Kakistos from Faith, Hope, and Trick in the background. It's the laugh he utters after he telling Buffy she needs a bigger steak, because they use the exact same music from that scene. And so the sound editor just kind of took the laugh out. And it's really interesting because it's on the season 3 disc as well. They have that same track over and over again. I don't know. It's kind of funny. So if you go back, you can hear it.
Oh, weird.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm like people in this show will forget to like take out a random prop or like things like that. I'm like, come on, guys. Whose job is it to do this?
Somebody was tired and was trying to do the least.
But I mean, I feel like there's so many shows like that where it's like, so you can't remember everything.
Gossip Girl. You could have people like with one shoe or wearing sweatpants.
Or wearing like
sweatpants. That is so funny to me. Oh gosh. Speaking of this guy, Michael, he gets like thrown up against like his locker in the hallway. And then Buffy, love of my life, just peeks her little head and smiling. And all the guys are like, no problem here. We're walking. I love this little like fourth wall breaking in the school, because this is the episode that like they talk about like kind of being open and honest about what this town is. Like Joyce just had that huge speech. And then right after that, we see someone in the school or multiple people in the school finally acknowledging, or that it's kind of people are aware that Buffy is like not to be truffled with, as Michael Scott would say.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was like, this indicates that people are actually aware of what's going on. They just choose to look the other way because they want to pretend they live in blissful ignorance as much as possible, which is which is a problem. That is a problem. Like people need to actually like be aware and take accountability for what's going on and try to help as much as they can, you know, not look the other way.
And then here comes our Cordelia token episode moment.
Here we go again.
Everyone knows. Yep. I'm just very upset with how they handle Cordelia at the last.
And they always make her mean and snappy, and it's just sad.
They literally take all the character development she's had for the past 3 seasons and revert her back to season 1. Not even the end of season 1, but the beginning.
And the sad thing is, I think this is the episode that they were trying to get her to join back up with the Scoobies. Like she's re-entering the fold. And I was like, that was barely an introduction.
Literally barely. She's like, if you're going to hang with them, expect badness, which makes me sad. She's like, because that's what happens when you hang with freaks and losers. Believe me, I know. And then this part was funny, though. She was like, that was a pointed comment about hanging with you guys. She's like, yeah, I got it. She was like, besides, witches didn't do it. And Giles was like, actually, they did.
But once again, Buffy is at the receiving end of Cordelia's ire. And it's like, why are you mad at Buffy? It's not Buffy's fault.
But it's like, man, like, you guys, like, we had that sweet episode in Homecoming where they're able to understand each other. And then now Cordelia's going to be bitter and Buffy's going to be the receiving end every single time. It's so frustrating.
Go make Xander feel guiltier than he already is in this episode.
Well, then I was about to say, and then after that, then this whole, I'm not going to get into like the details of it, but it's just like Xander not wanting to be held accountable for what happened. That's basically
sick
what
of the
it is.
Judgment, the innuendo. Is that your guilty conscience I hear there, Xander?
He's like, Oz is looking at me just waiting for me to mess up again. I'm like, that's
he doesn't have
lack
to wait
of
for
trust.
you to mess up again. You already messed up largely. Like the fact that he's even being nice to you is a courtesy.
Is he just expecting everyone to forget immediately?
I'm sorry, y'all. I was having my
We're
own
struggling
battle there.
tonight. Well, and then Buffy's like, Xander, you are guilty. You got illicit smoochies and you have to pay the price. I was like, thank you. I feel like she's been very bold with him the past couple of episodes. Here for it.
He's just expecting everyone to trust him immediately after that. And then Buffy kind of goes over and finds out there's that whole like funny interaction again where Xander's like, I don't know where she is. And she's like, she's in the bathroom. Buffy walks over and sees Willow paper. You see the symbol on it. I love the little like hidden stuff because at this point they've dropped a few Easter eggs that like Willow's been struggling with magic. So this part was set up well because you're thinking, oh, is Willow actually like the person behind this? Like, is she out of control?
There's
like,
enough
you're
doubt.
able to believe it. Yeah.
Yep. A doodle, I do doodle. You too. You do doodle too. It's one of my favorite lines ever. Then we find out that Snyder's going through all the lockers. This is really interesting.
Snyder is, the more I see of Snyder, the more interesting he becomes to me.
Also, why does Xander have Playboys at school?
Oh my gosh. Are we surprised though?
But
are we
at school,
disappointed?
though.
I'd be more surprised if Xander didn't have them at school.
Yeah, at this
But
point.
at school though, at home, whatever, your choice. But it's like, what are, like, you're just going to read them casually in the hallway? No one's going to look at you and think, what are you doing?
No,
Yeah,
bro, you take it to the
seriously.
bathroom.
Yeah, but like, what, like, why? I don't know. It's just so dumb. Like, at school, are you kidding me?
We never said Xander was smart here, okay?
Willow mentions she tells Buffy, she was like, Buffy, you have to believe me. We made a protection spell for you with Amy for your birthday. And then this part was so slick. Like, Snyder tells her to go to the office and Buffy grabs his spell book as she walks away.
Yeah.
And then Oz walks with her.
I
So
saw
sweet.
that too. He didn't have to go to the office, but he immediately went with
I
her.
know.
Why is he perfect?
And then this is one of those episodes, I feel like every show, there's always an episode that kind of like scares you because you think that you're getting in trouble with like the police or something. And then it ends up being fine. But like, it's always stressful when you're watching it because you're like, how are they going to get all this back? Like, how are they going to come back from this? And like, this library scene is one of those where they're taking like out all the books and poor Giles is so stressed.
I mean, okay, so I struggle because I'm totally like, yeah, okay, I'm on Buffy and Giles' side on the one hand.
I get
but
Snyder,
then I'm also like, Snyder's making some pretty valid points here. Like, why do you need like satanic ritual books in the library for high schoolers?
He's like, bloody
to read?
sacrifices. Why do children need this?
Exactly.
But also, why hasn't Snyder started asking these questions so long ago?
It's so true.
Or they don't do like little like Snoopy Snoops in like offices or like watch and like observe Giles in the library, even though no one comes in anyway. But it's like, don't you know what's being sold in your library?
Well, I think Snyder's secretly afraid of Giles, and I think he feels empowered right now. But yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm only going to say this once. I kind of agree with Snyder in this scene.
Obviously, we know like there's demons and such, and it's helped people. We can see it from their perspective, but it's like from an educator's perspective or just a real world perspective, you're like, why the heck do they have like blood sacrifice books?
Yep, exactly.
And I love how they like make a joke about like the acronym for like the
Moo
is Moo. And then he like makes a comment. He's like, some people call them mother. And then I love how it's like Willow comes in, she starts talking to her mom about her witch stuff, and the mom's like, "Oh yeah, this is normal." But it's also it's not in a way of understanding. It's a way of kind of like being like, "Oh, this is typical." It's kind of like the whole equivalent to it's just a phase.
This is a cry for discipline, which is really sad because it's a cry for attention, really. Like, this is what happens when parents ignore their kids but hold them to impossible, not ignore, but like don't have a real close, intimate relationship with their kids, but hold them to impossible standards. You end up with a child like Willow who's so desperate for control and what people think of her and is a perfectionist in how she lives her life.
But I also think it's because like Willow thinks that if she continues to be perfect, that she'll
get attention.
She'll get
and
that
praise.
attention.
Yep.
But it's also like there is a certain point where like that does start to crack, and you start being like, why should I be perfect? Why should I be all these things when I'm not getting your attention? When I could be bad and get your attention that way.
And that's what you kind of see here.
Yeah, it's not because the thing is that's not what Willow is purposely trying to do.
Right.
But it's like, you know, as a parent, it's a cry for help.
Well, there's an exasperation of like, you're not actually listening to me when I'm literally telling you the truth. So I'm going to overblow it in the attempts that maybe you'll react and respond in the way that like you should, instead of looking at it from like a clinical indifference. I think Willow just wants her to crack and be like, I love you. Like, I care for you. I'm worried about you. Instead, it's like, oh, like I see you as a lab rat, basically. Rat. But, you know, and so Willow's going, I want to just know you care about me and are not just looking at me as another one of your statistical analysis.
Yeah. Or even she says like, Mom, I'm not an age group.
Yes.
I'm me. I'm Willow group. And you're like, oh.
I'm so sad.
And then she's like, you're grounded. Buffy's like, this is the first time ever I've done something you don't like and I'm grounded, that's so sad. It's the lazy route. It's the easy route too when you don't know your daughter, is just to ground them.
Yep. And then you have over here Joyce saying the exact same thing. You know, I don't want you to see Willow anymore. Mrs. Rosenberg's like, I don't want you to see that Bunny Summers anymore. Bunny Summers. So funny.
Gosh. And then this whole interaction in the house with Joyce and Buffy where she's like, oh, Moo just wants to weed out the offensive material. Oh, we've heard that one before. And then Buffy is so sweet. She says, this is like kind of what I was saying in the beginning where I said Buffy's the best part of this episode, because she responds so maturely. She's like, Mom, I hate that these people scared you so much. Kind of being like very like empathetic, and says, I know you're trying to help, but you have to let me handle this. It's what I do. It's such a mature, emotionally like responsive answer to her mom's kind of like overreaction. She's sitting there affirming her and being like, I hate that you're scared by this, but then also kind of allowing her to like assert her own power by saying, but you have to allow me to work through this on my own. And I feel like that's such a I don't know. So the writers can have well-written characters is what I'm hearing.
She's such an understanding character. She's so good at knowing where people are at and just kind of like seeing where they're at and just being like affirming it, kind of what you were saying, Tabby. But it's just like Buffy knows better than anyone what it feels like to feel powerless and what it feels like to just like want to help and all that. And so I feel like I love that she responds to her mom like this. She's not trying to be disobedient. She's just trying to do her job, but she does it in the most loving and kind way.
But Joyce's whole, is it really you patrol, you slay, evil pops up, you undo it? You know, has Sunnydale gotten any better? Which we all know it has from The Wish, but in Buffy's
I was about to say, I was like, I love that this is right after The Wish, after a couple episodes. Because we've seen the fruition of Buffy coming to Sunnydale. And I love that they did that because, and it's so sad because it's like, Joyce really has no leg to stand on when she's saying that Buffy's patrols are fruitless when you've literally been to one of them. But she's like, it's not your fault. You don't have a plan. You react to things. Oof. She said it's bound to be kind of fruitless. Like that's so diminishing of what Buffy literally has gone through. She literally saved the world. I know like Joyce doesn't really see that only because I think that night was overshadowed by her like running away. But she was literally telling her like, I need to go save the world.
Yeah.
again.
But I mean, Joyce fundamentally doesn't understand Buffy's calling and her role as a Slayer because she literally was like, well, Faith can just take your job. And Buffy's like, no, that's not how this works. Like, I
Right.
am a Slayer. It is me. So I can't just walk away from this job. And so I think this is just Joyce constantly trying to find ways of relieving Buffy of her job because she fundamentally doesn't understand who Buffy is.
Right. And I love, like, Buffy stands her ground, but doesn't do it in a mean way. But she also shows, like, what she needs. And she's like, next time the world's getting sucked into hell, I won't be able to stop it because the anti-hell sucking book isn't on approved reading list.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
She's like, I have to go on one of my pointless patrols where I react to some vampire.
And then we find out that, oh, Joyce is not, the evil person that we believe her to be. It's these little kids that are supposedly, I don't know, like whispering in her ear or whatever. But there's something evil and funky going on.
And then this scene, this is the one I was about to talk about. Just because this, I mean, like, I've seen, like, basically all of, like, the Bangel scenes a ton, and it's just warm and fuzzy. But there's something about this one, especially after amends.
There's such a warmth with each other. They're just like, they do such a good job of making two supernatural beings in a show make them feel so normal. The way they talk, the way they communicate, you just feel how much they love each other, and they, like, it just feels safe. Like, Angel is really the only person that you can tell Buffy feels safe with. Like, where she just lets her guard down completely. Even Giles, even her mom, even her friends, like, no one compares to the way that Buffy and Sarah Michelle Gellar does an amazing job, and so does David Boreanaz, but, like, they just, watching them, you really see two people in love.
This scene, it was done so well by the dialogue, by the acting. Like, no one else in the show that we've seen thus far, Buffy really opens up to as much as she does with Angel. And we see a ton of it more so in season 3 just because they have more of a foundation of like having to rebuild somewhat of a friendship. But with season 3, they had to, like, they're faking being friends. They also had to start somewhere that wasn't romantic because there was trauma in the relationship. And so I really learned to appreciate season 3 Bangel, which I've always been, like, here for season 2 just because it's a variety of, like, Bangel emotions. But, like, season 3 Bangel is just so good just because it is very grounded. They've had to, like I said 3 times already, I apologize, but they really just have to start somewhere. They have to start somewhere new. They have to start somewhere and, like, re-ground their relationship. Relationship not necessarily meaning romantic. I mean, it is now, but in the beginning, it was like they had to start over. They had to address a lot of the trauma. They had to be there for each other, especially Angel during his worst. And I love, and this is so healthy that it's like the last episode, she had to really bring him out of it. And then he was just there for her and was comforting to her and kind of reiterated back what she needed to hear on what she had told him the episode prior. It's just beautiful. It's amazing. It's show-stopping. Never been done before. I'm just
Well, it reminds me of Ted again when he's talking to her about, like, what would your mom want? What would your mom think? Like, he's so good at grounding her, giving her a fresh perspective, but also in this one, he's encouraging her. I love how humble he is. He says, Buffy, I'm still working things out. There's a lot I don't understand, but I know it's important to keep fighting, and I learned that from you. Gosh.
Like, oh my gosh, let's make out already!
And she's like, but we never, and he says when, and she's like, not completely, and he says, never will. That's not why we fight. We do it because there's things worth fighting for.
Gosh. What is so good. It does 2 things. It encourages Buffy. They also, well, it does 3 things actually. It encourages Buffy. It also segues into Buffy recognizing, hey, we haven't heard from their parents. But then also it shows that Angel has internalized the message that Buffy showed him. And it wasn't just a one-time thing, that he's actively fighting every single day. Ah, it's so good.
Well, you could see a healthier Angel. He walks up.
Yes.
He seems like he's really processed everything. You see that he is kind of feeling a little bit more healthier. He's feeling better. Like,
well, he sought
he
her out
feels
too.
himself.
He knew where she would be. She was at the site, and he's like, Buffy's going to be looking for this. So he goes there to find her, to encourage her. It's so good.
Yep. And I want to say, like, a phrase that, or a line that Buffy says in this interaction really just kind of shows the direction of where Buffy's kind of heading, and I love it. And she says, I battle evil, but I don't really win. Evil comes back and it's getting stronger, which is something we all have learned in life. It's like you go through a huge hump and then you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I survived that. And then the next one's a little bit bigger. It's a bigger hill. And then you go down. And then the next one is even bigger. It's like, that's how life is. You're preparing for the next one. You're preparing for the next trial.
Yep.
It's like you're given something really hard, and then you survive and you make it through. And then you have time of healing, hopefully a time of healing and processing, if you can, if that's the healthiest reaction. And then you're able to process and move to the next one.
Well, and it's also like, we know that that's wrong. Buffy has won multiple times. Like, we've seen it. And because of the wish, we've seen how many times she's won. Like, because the world looks very different to if she wasn't there to win.
So Giles is wrestling with the computer.
And then Xander comes up and goes, Frisky Watchers chat room. Wow, Giles.
And Giles is like, not helpful. Not helpful. Thanks, Xander.
He like slaps his arm. That was funny. I was like, you know what, Xander? That was funny. Good job. For every annoying comment you have, there's one that really lands for me. So that one landed. And then Kate, I love that they have this as like a little epiphany moment, because this is true. Sometimes we get so fixated on like the emotion behind it that we're like having a hard time looking at like either like the facts or stuff that we're missing. And I love that this is realistic. Buffy's like, well, what do we know about these kids? Like, and I love how everyone's like, oh, we didn't even think to ask about like their names or like who got the pictures. We assumed that somebody had done the research. And that is so true.
But that's how misinformation gets spread.
Yeah.
It's such a good, like, it's so funny how he's even like railing at the computer, and yet internet and online is probably like why misinformation spreads so freaking fast. It's just this episode, I know it's not like, oh, the internet, like it's not railing against necessarily like online and all that stuff, because there was no social media at this point. Well, I guess there was a little bit, but not like Facebook or anything. But it just was so ahead of its time.
And this part I don't really understand. Apparently they connect to Willow's computer. I love how they just like throw stuff in there thinking this will happen in the future.
Basically,
like, okay.
Well, no, basically they just screen shared is what they did.
Then they find out doing some research that every 50 years, like this like demon or whatever reopens up like this like Hansel and Gretel thing that happened in 1649. So it's been going on every 50 years since then. You can do the math to kind of bring up this whole idea of like watching the world burn, because like people kind of go up in flames, and then that's what usually destroys cities, is because like they get too passionate about something and then they end up fighting each other.
Yep.
And then are too led by their emotions without really knowing or thinking clearly about a situation. Because if they had just looked it up, then they would be like, oh,
yeah,
these kids have been dead for like 500 years.
Well, but also like people are being influenced. There's two dead kids in the mix. They're not really going to assume like, let's look it up and see if they actually died. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right. People are going to
understand.
Assume it's,
yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, even Buffy believed it too. She bought it. She saw the bodies, you know?
Well, I'm sure it was probably a lot harder, like even just 50 years before that, because they'd have to like go and look at actual transcripts from like different
newspaper
places.
articles.
Whereas you can just like Google it during that time.
Yeah. Look it up on the net.
And then Willow's mom, being all creepy, comes in, takes Willow's computer.
She wasn't creepy. She just like walked right in, and Willow doesn't even look up. I was like, Willow, like, try.
No, she says, I believe you, dear. Now all I can do now is let you go with love.
Oh, yeah. She's like, but it's chilly. Go ahead and grab your coat. And then Willow's like, but why? She's like, I said grab your coat.
She goes from 0 to 100 real quick. You're like, wow, you used to be like not involved in my life at all. Now you're way too involved.
Literally me at 7:59 p.m. versus 8 o'clock o'clock p.m. when I'm trying to get my kids to go to bed. You know, the Mary Poppins voice versus Batman voice when you're trying to
like,
get your
all
kids.
right, enough. You guys are running around. Let's go to bed.
All right, children, it's time to go to bed. 5 minutes later, I said go to bed.
Literally.
Also, Willow being locked in her room makes no sense because she has a balcony in her room because we know that Angel, like come on.
From Lie to Me.
Yep.
Buffy and Giles walk into Buffy's house. Joyce is having a meeting with people, and they're like, hey, Joyce, we need to talk to you. And then everyone kind of gets up and gangs up on both of them. They knock them out.
Which I was like, Giles, I feel like you could take on 2 average size guys. I'm disappointed in you.
Maybe they give them some like supernatural strength. Let's just say that. Sure.
Okay,
Since they don't explain these things, I'm just going to project and say what I think happened.
Sure.
And then Oz and Xander, you see them running through Willow's house. No one's in there. Where is Willow's dad in all this?
He was out of town. They said that earlier.
I kind of assume that Willow's parents are very estranged, and so the dad just kind of takes any excuse to not be in the house.
I just wanted to mention that part with Michael because I honestly think that is, for me, the saddest part of this episode.
Yes, same.
I think All Things Philosophical on Buffy points out that the subtext is that Michael is being punished because he chose a way of life that is normally associated with women. And I thought that was really poignant.
Oh, I never even thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he's associating with witches. He's someone that wants to be. I mean, there's a whole.
They also made derogatory comments about his eyeliner as well.
Oh,
Yes.
that's true. That's true.
Yep. There's a whole like subtext here, but he looks
like a little like sensitive angel baby. I'm just like, oh, I want to protect
he talks
you.
about how
You're so sweet.
His dad and his friends like beat him up. I mean, there's just a lot there, and I think that like I love how this episode shows the spectrum of abuse and how you can have emotional abuse, you can have abuse, abandonment. Neglect, and you can have like physical abuse,
but also like the side of abuse that happens to men who don't fit the standards of what masculinity is.
Yes, exactly.
Like, because that is sadly a big thing.
Big problem. Yeah.
I just like felt so bad. He came in and I completely forgot about like his character in general. But when he ran in, I was like, oh, I think it just was so sad because it was kind of like brushed this, not in a bad way, but just kind of like there's so much happening that they couldn't really delve so much into it. And it's like a symptom of a huge issue of the episode. But it's like him coming in, it was a little jarring for me. Like this was the part where I was like, I felt a little bit more like protective. Because like he came in, he was like all bloody and he was like, my dad like beat me or whatever. And then he looks like all scared. And the fact that he decided to go and run to Buffy in the library because he knew they were in there. It's after hours. Like he ran out of his home. And I love that they brought that up too because like what we said earlier, like Buffy, like all those boys being scared of Buffy and like you know, it's people in the high school know what Buffy is doing or know that she's strong.
Right. And they're showing these things because they're subtly showing us that Buffy is making a difference. That she's got people that recognize that what she's doing is she's protecting people and stuff. And so I think that people like Michael are hugely important for the audience and for Buffy to realize that like this isn't pointless, you know?
Mm-hmm. I know he's such a small character, but there's little subtle things that show that like people are aware. And I love that little small thing where he runs out of his home and his first thought isn't to go to the police. His first thought is to go to Buffy. And that just warms my heart. And then Willow, Amy, and Buffy are tied to the post and there's a bunch of like books that are on the floor. This kind of reminds me of like Hitler and
there's a couple Nazi references, which again, Willow's Jewish.
I was going to say it's because Willow's Jewish, which is like, guys, is that unnecessary to keep putting?
Do we need to keep bringing up Nazi stuff? Yeah.
Well, the whole censorship, book burning, things like that was a huge Nazi thing.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So there's an intention behind it. The whole idea of, and then the fact that Willow is Jewish.
I like that they brought that in specifically only because there's usually a pattern with dictatorship and like not all dictatorship, but like, you know, like with
you get a control of
toxic
the media.
ruling people when they want to control what people are watching so that they can run to them for truth, run to them for what to do. And that's an easy way of controlling people. Like, and this is coming from somebody who was forced to watch a lot of like cult stuff in like my English classes. There was like documentaries you watch on like Jonestown and things like that. So like I'm very versed in the patterns of like people controlling somebody in like a group of, and it's very jarring, and there's some specific things people do. It's very smart, it's very creepy, but it's like actual tactics, and like censorship is one huge one, which is why a lot of like culty stuff tends to happen in religious aspects, because it's already kind of restricted. And there's already a lot of rules, so it's the easiest environment. That's why most cults are through religious stuff. It's because also it's a very hopeful environment. So if you can assert yourself as a godlike figure, and people who are lost and are looking for hope, they're easier to control, which is awful, because it's like you're literally like taking advantage of people's mental state and emotional state. It's easier to kind of twist that. I think it's important for people to understand that, so you can have empathy for people in cults, empathy for people in these situations, because on the outside, it's easy to look in and be like, well, I would never believe that this person was like God, or believe that this person would control me and like restrict me of all of my freedoms. But it's like, you have to understand, like, some of these people are so broken and they're looking for anything. And if you're in those states, like, and you're looking for hope, and someone's offering that to you, and they're usually charismatic and they're believable and like all these things, they offer you so much, it's so easy to grasp onto. But I love that touch. It's a little jarring, but it makes sense for the episode to have like books on the floor they used to burn it. Oh, and then at the house, Cordelia's like slapping Giles. Those look like real slaps too.
Yeah, I'm curious if she actually did slap him.
Well, his face like moves with it too. Like, it looks like she actually is.
She's like, took you long enough to wake up. My hand hurts. Like, not his face at all, or his head.
And I like how, like, especially right after the whole Michael scene, it's like Cordelia too. When stuff is happening, she goes to find Buffy. She's like, how many times have you been knocked down anyway? I swear, one of these times you're going to wake up in a coma.
And he's like,
wake up and up.
Never mind. Also, just as a note,
funny.
This is his 13th time getting knocked out in the series. So
Jeez.
Not good. Not looking good for Mr. Giles.
Definitely sounds like some brain damage coming in his way.
Yes, exactly.
Not to spoil anything, but
speaking of brain damage too, he's like, we need to save Buffy from Hansel and Gretel. And she's like, now let's be clear, the brain damage happened before I hit you.
Yeah. I don't know why she's surprised. I mean, she's seen some cookie things.
That's like one of those lines as like a like screenwriter or like a writer in general. I'm sure that they'd sit there and be like, yes. As soon as they read that, they're like, I'm so glad I thought of that.
Yeah.
You know
Jane Espensen's
I'm here to affirm you. This is funny. Yes.
Oh, Xander and Oz trying to join Moo. Why should you guys have all the fun? We want to be part of the hate.
I will say Xander and Oz, like we said earlier, they're a funny pair. Like when they're not,
so
fighting over Willow.
They're so opposite.
They're so funny.
I love the little like self-aware jokes too. They're like, what's with the grim?
The script says, nope, the Moo freaks are looking even more murderous after that. Oz, just so we're clear, you know you're nuts, right?
And they chase them. I love how it's like grown-ass adults and they're chasing these little high schoolers. Sometimes you look at it and you're like, this is funny for what it is. Like, It's so normal in a Buffy verse, but it's so funny the adults are just like crazy.
Oh, and Joyce, man, this hurts. Joyce was very biting in what she had to say. Like when Buffy wakes up, she says, since when does it matter what I want? I wanted a normal, happy daughter. Instead, I got a slayer. Ooh. Okay, so like
that is painful.
A lot of undertones in this episode.
So I understand, yes, at the heart of it, I think that's what Joyce wants, but I don't think Joyce would say it that way, obviously, when she's not under the influence. My thing is that I feel like the episode didn't need to go so hard with Joyce, because it's like it's already hard enough. Like we get it. We know Joyce is struggling with this. I don't think we need to hear her say it. And yeah, it just makes it harder to defend her.
Yeah, that's true.
This little interaction though between Mrs. Rosenberg and Joyce.
No. I died at the part where she walks up and goes, torch. Like, we know it's a torch. You don't have to say torch. And then hands her a torch. I found that the funniest part of the whole episode. Don't ask me why. I thought it was so funny. She just walks up and goes, torch.
Well, she was asking her, do you want the torch? But she
No,
said
but
torch.
it just was so funny. The way she said it was just saying
they're
torch.
communicating to each other literally like children. Like,
yeah, they are.
There's just no communication and there's no like actual adult thinking going on. It's all just like, "What? I'm angry and you're here and pass me the torch." Like like the way they're thinking is like children.
But it's just so. And then Joyce is like, "You've been so strong throughout all this," and like it's just so funny. It's
we should
horrible,
stay
but it's
close,
so funny.
have lunch. We're
Have
like,
lunch.
we've literally never met you before. Like
That one, that's what sent me over the edge because they literally sound like moms at PTA meetings. Like, oh my gosh, you've been so strong when they're literally killing their daughters.
This is Emily Gilmore in like her DAR meetings.
How nice. I'd love to. And you can tell even while
And
they're
she hates
saying
that
it,
person.
yeah, that they don't like it.
Yeah.
They don't mean
Yeah.
it at all. It's so inauthentic. Oh my word. So funny. Elizabeth Ann Allen said that the day they shot this scene was her birthday. So everyone said she was a human candle. And when they lit it, everyone sang happy birthday to her.
What a random episode. She's been in like 2 other ones.
She said it was a very funny episode. I thought somebody's sick and twisted out there. When asked how close she got to the flames, she said it was pretty close as it was actual flames. They have to surround us in it, and it's strange. It's not something that you have a great deal of control over. They always have a guy with fire extinguishers, and there's actually a fireman on the set anytime there's a fire. It's a few inches from you at times. It's kind of scary. Some of your reactions are completely genuine. I could definitely feel the heat. I mean, they make sure you're okay. There's somebody standing next to you who appears to be an extra, but who really is a fire person.
Oh, nice.
That still sounds terrifying though. Like working with like fire, whether it's fake
and you're tied up.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of fun, especially if there's like people near you that are like actual firefighters. I feel like it'd be fine.
Tabby's like, oh no, help! I'm helpless. Firefighters, help me.
That's not what I was saying.
It sounded like you're like, as long as there's firefighters there, it's all
No,
good.
I'm saying like as an actor, like it'd be kind of like fun to like be in that situation where you're able to have authentic reactions. That's what I meant. Okay, Sarah, that's not at all what I'm saying.
Okay, then she gave a really fun story. She said how her and Allison Hannigan went to go get belly rings. She said, we went last 4th of July. That was the goal, getting a belly ring.
I cannot picture Allison Hannigan with a belly button ring.
She says, and we got there, and I think I was the only person who got one because Allison, during the middle of it, took one look at mine and said, ew. And I said, no, you don't say ew in the middle of it when I can't go back. There were a couple of other girls who were with us, and one did have the intention, and seeing mine, she did chicken out. But I don't know if Allison had the intention to. I ended up being the only one.
Well, I was about to say, I was like, I don't think she ever got one only, and this is going to sound so weird, but like, I've seen episodes either on like How I Met Your Mother or Buffy. I've seen her belly button, and there's no scar of like a hole there.
Right.
So like, I was like, I don't think she got one.
Right.
But because it's obvious, like as soon as you have like a belly button piercing, like everyone knows you had one at one point because there's like a scar there. I love how like Amy does like the spell where she's like Hecate, yada yada.
Yeah.
Turns into a rat. And then Buffy's like, she couldn't do us first.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks, Amy.
The one time Buffy's asking to be turned into a rat.
I love how she's like, you will all be turned into firemen. Some of you will be fish. Yes, you in the back. You will be fish.
I mean, come on. That's pretty effective.
Hey, if it's any of those fishmen from Go Fish, then
okay, you
not
win.
them again.
You win. The guy in the back was like, maybe this isn't such a good idea. I don't want to be a fish.
I've been turned into a cow. Can I go home?
You may be excused. What's anyone else wanting to go home?
No, we're good.
Emperor's New Groove. I feel like this is like our second or third reference of this movie.
Why do we even have lava?
Anyway, okay. Back to Gingerbread.
And then this whole like driving car scene gives me the same energy as, do you like my pretty mask?
Yes.
It raises people from the dead.
I thought so too. He's like trying to explain to her that's a rat dropping, and she's like, ugh.
He's like, that's inside the rat. And she's like, I hate you.
They the script stopped talking about the people as actual people and started referring to them as moosters.
Oh gosh. Anyway, so they're crawling through the vents, and I was like, I literally expected there to be a rat in there, which would have been appropriate because that's such a missed opportunity.
Amy comes running through.
Yes, that could be such a missed
Every time
opportunity.
I watch this, I always think we're gonna see Amy like just scurrying around like on people's feet or like things like that. Like you just think that she's gonna pop up more than she does as a rat.
Mom, dead people are talking to you. Do the math.
Literally. No, when she said that, I was like, literally. And then she goes, what kind of mother would I be if I didn't punish you? Ooh. Joycey, come on, girl. I'm trying to throw you a bone here, but like, it's really hard
It's
when you
so
keep
hard.
doing episodes like this. Okay, I have a question though. Why is there a random hose in there?
Who even knows? And the
Sounds like
mayor's up there like
Perfect
roasting,
placement.
marshmallows while he's watching all the stuff happen on the security footage, because this is happening in freaking town hall. Everyone should be dead from smoke inhalation at this point. Like,
100%.
yeah.
And I mean, the mayor's pretty smart for being a safe distance away.
I mean, to be fair, they can't afford like this scene to be like filmed outside because all they have are like graveyards, and it doesn't really have the aesthetic for this episode. But having it indoors doesn't make any sense.
But having them burnt in a graveyard feels pretty appropriate, though.
Yes, but like imagine like having them be burned at the stake in a graveyard is a little bit more sinister than having it inside in like a courthouse. You know what I mean? Like it's a little too
maybe.
dark.
I think it just came down to it was easier to control a fire in a room than take it outside.
And then Cordelia, for some reason, brings out a hose from nowhere and starts like hosing down everyone. Buffy's like, Cordelia, put out the fire.
So Giles throws the potion, and the demon's like, protect us, kill the bad girls. And Cordelia's like, I think I like the two little ones better than the big one.
I love how Buffy breaks the post, and then she's like, did I get it? Did I get it?
Right. Which I think it's interesting, like the whole metaphor of once truth is exposed, like, or I guess I should say once the lie is exposed for ugly? How ugly it is, mm-hmm. and also just the subversion of Buffy using the post that she was going to be burnt at to kill the monster. It's just the parallels and the metaphors and all that stuff is just really, really cool.
I love that they chose to do that. I was like, yes, turn it back on him.
And then Oz and Xander fall through. And
right like, where the fire would have been. They would have died.
True, yeah.
Oh my
Although, let's be real, those flames did not look like they were very high at all. They would have just landed on it, rolled around, and been fine.
Yeah. Then they would have been captured by Moo, and they would have brought in 2 more posts in there.
Moo. And then we end in Willow's room, where they're trying to do a spell for Amy. And then she talks about her mom having selective hearing. And then she's expected to have Oz over the next week for dinner. And then I love how she does did you guys pick it up that she does the exact same spell that Amy did to reverse the rat spell in Bewitched? Mm-hmm. She calls on Diana.
Hecate. Which I'm like, how did they find Amy? Like, Amy would have been long gone by then. They had to go like hunt down this one rat and make sure it was actually Amy. They're like, man, the spell isn't working. It's because they didn't actually get Amy.
But it's like, did they tell Amy's parents, or I guess her mom, her dad?
Yeah, now, her mom's still in the statue in the courtyard or whatever. Although I will say, I don't know why they didn't take Amy back to Giles, because Giles was able to reverse the spell on Buffy last time. So the fact that Willow's not able to do it just seems a little like weird that they wouldn't have Giles do it. But
was it Giles? I thought it was Amy who did it.
It was Amy and Giles. Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe it was Amy who reversed the spell on Buffy.
I thought about
and
it.
It was
I'm
Giles.
pretty sure it was.
Oh yeah, Amy did the rat
Amy
spell.
Amy did the rat spell. Giles did the mind spell.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that would make sense, because I was like, that seems like a pretty big plot hole that they wouldn't have Giles.
No, because I thought about that too. I was like, well, why can't they just go and like figure it out? But
that makes sense.
To be fair, I think they really could have asked Giles, and it would have been fine.
Yeah,
but, yada yada yada. It's all about story. And then we end on Buffy being like, maybe we should get her one of those wheelie thingies.
They don't seem very like, oh no, Amy's still a rat. I mean,
a human being is an animal.
Like Amy, friend Amy, like who's done nothing
They really said, no loose ends.
Yeah, they really did. But I just think I want to talk like about Amy just for a brief second. Like I love that they use Amy in this episode, because her whole thing when the witch was her mom trying to take over her identity. And I think you see a pattern of that in this episode of like Amy's now trying to assert her own identity and be a witch and do good things. Like she's trying to help Willow with that spell for Buffy, and people are still accusing her of the exact same thing that her mother did. And so Amy is being forced once again into a mold that she doesn't fit in. And it's just, I think that's why she snaps and is like, oh, fine. Like, if you don't believe me, that I'm actually going to be the witch that you all think I am. And I mean, it's just very sad. I feel bad for Amy, who's now trapped as Amy Rat.
I know. Poor Amy. clearly has a lot of trauma.
Seriously.
And I like how this is the episode where it talks about like parents just kind of being awful and abusive, because like the other episodes we see of Amy, like we know her family life.
Yeah.
So I like that the fact that they bring her in, but then also having like witch stuff on top of it, because like she was almost being like punished for her witch stuff like in season 1.
Yep, exactly. All right, guys. Well, that was Gingerbread. Thanks so much for joining in. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what your guys' thoughts are of Gingerbread. Do you love this episode? Do you think it's the weakest episode of the season? We want to know. As always, guys, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok and Tumblr at Becoming Buffy Podcast. You can also email us at becomingbuffypodcast@gmail.com. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Becoming Buffy. Today is the spoiler section for Gingerbread. In case you do not remember from last time, this is our spoiler section. We will be spoiling all parts of Buffy. Can't tell you what because it's a surprise every time. We're always like, oh, we're talking about this topic today. But also for the show Angel as well. So if you do not want spoilers, then I highly recommend not listening to this episode and coming back next week when we talk about Helpless, right? Yeah, it's Helpless next week. I'm so excited. All right, one episode at a time. Let's keep talking about spoilers for Gingerbread. But I feel like there's not too much to talk about today. There's obviously things like, oh, we get to see Willow's mom, and then we never see Willow's mom ever again. And like just some random things like that. But other than that, this episode is just, I think, Tabby, you put it very well. This episode is just a fever dream. Like, it's like, did this actually happen?
I will say which is so funny, because when you watch this episode, you really don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But the only thing that's a big deal is, what's her face? Who turns into a rat, who comes back in season 6. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's the biggest part about this episode. Because, I mean, then she goes to college with Buffy, and then she turns back into a human for like a split second, and then she comes back finally in season 6 and is not helpful at all.
It's not helpful. No, yeah, she's the very opposite of helpful, that's for sure.
She's also mentally stuck in like a 16-year-old's body or 17-year-old's body.
Yeah.
So part of me is like, you have had 0 time to mature.
Right. And then we also saw her very toxic mother back in The Witch and stuff too. So like there's a part of me that feels really bad for Amy. I think of Amy and Jonathan as very similar in that sense. They're both outcasts, and both of them had, like, Amy is kind of like what would happen to Willow if she didn't have the good influence possibly of Buffy around. And then Jonathan is what Xander could be as well. Someone who desperately wants friends and is nerdy, but ended up, having a purpose in life because of Buffy. Jonathan ends up getting caught up in the wrong crowd, and both Amy and Jonathan Jonathan was like semi-evil. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about him, but he ends up dying a tragic death, and then Amy ends up going full evil. So I feel bad every time I go back and watch them. It's interesting that this episode is about censorship, because later the show would not be allowed to show Earshot because of the correlation, or the supposed correlation, to school shootings and Columbine, which happened right before. So for a lot of people, they did not watch Earshot. And then, later on, the prom happens and Jonathan gives the umbrella to Buffy, and it lost a lot of significance because people hadn't seen Earshot.
I do agree that them putting off that episode was probably a wise decision.
Sure.
Only because it was so fresh. It's not about censorship, it's about sensitivity. And it's just about
absolutely.
Like, it's a little tone deaf if they were to air that right after, even though I know that they didn't make that because of it or anything. But it's like, could you imagine like your viewers are traumatized by a huge event that's just happened that is extremely traumatizing. And then watching something else like that on TV play out, like that's a lot. Like so I'm glad that they did push it off for the time, but it also does really make me sad, because in the story of Buffy, that episode is huge when it comes to Jonathan and Buffy's relationship.
Yeah, I know. And it's also the episode that you find out that Joyce and Giles actually slept together, and there's quite a few things in there that, it's just a fantastic episode. But I do agree with you, Leah. I think that the networks should have done it because of sensitivity issues, not because it was, oh, this is what causes school shootings and stuff, which I feel like that's a very 90s, early 2000s way of looking at school shootings. And I mean, as humans, I mean, I don't want to go off in too much of a tangent, but as humans, we want to look for reasons. We want to look for why horrible things happen. And it's so much easier to look at our world if it's black and white as, oh, there's a very clear correlation between, video games and violent media. That must be why people are doing that. Instead of looking at the harder reasons why, which is mental health. There's so many reasons why these things happen. I'm not saying it's any one thing. It's so many different things. And it's a lot harder to address these deeper issues than it is to just address the symptoms. So anyway, it's just interesting that Buffy's talking about censorship in this episode, and then several episodes later, one of their episodes gets censored. Okay, so when Principal Snyder walks into the library and it's, being emptied of books by the police, he says, "I love the smell of desperate librarian in the morning" to Giles. That's a paraphrased quote from the famous line from Apocalypse Now, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." Apocalypse Now will actually be the theme of Xander's dream in Restless, and that in that dream, Snyder appears, which I think is really cool. This is
what the heck?
Yeah.
How did they go back and understand all this, or just think of this?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that probably was inserted by Joss Whedon. Joss has, we've talked about it. There's a lot of Shakespearean references, a lot of The Merchant of Venice, and there's a lot of the same stories over and over again. And so I think it's just Joss's favorite things that he puts in over and over again. And then when Restless pops up, he's like, oh, this is my favorite movie. So it fits in with my theme of this character. And so he's going to put that in. So I don't know that Joss is necessarily foreshadowing anything, but, and then again, we all know Joss went back and watched a lot of this too. So it's very possible that he went back and was like, ooh, that would be a good idea for this future thing that I'm going to do. Okay, and then something we talked about, I think off mic, whatever, if you want to call it, the other day was how crazy it is that Faith has barely been in the show. And this is episode 11. And we still aren't sure what's going on with the mayor. We haven't done anything yet. And I'm dying over here because I can't wait to start talking about Faith and Buffy.
I think that's why this season's so good, though, is because it's slow burn, and it's holy Lord Almighty. I just got the biggest butt cramp ever. Wow. That was excruciating. Oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. But I really like the slow burn of this episode. Personally, I always wish that there was more Faith, but I don't feel like we lack anything. When I get to the end of the show, I feel like Faith is a fully fleshed out character at that point. For what the season has given, obviously her character has a lot to do, but
sure,
I really feel like she wasn't snubbed. Personally, I would always love to see more of her, but I don't feel like her character needed more. I feel like if we saw more of the mayor, he wouldn't be as creepy. I feel like they gave him the right amount of time to make his character interesting and creepy without kind of doing too much. I have very little complaints about this season. I think this season is just a 10 out of 10 season. Even on its worst episodes, it is amazing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that here we are in episode 11, and there's this episode, Gingerbread, which I don't necessarily feel like is very needed to the overall arc of the storyline. By the time you get to the end of this season, yes, you're like, oh, this is good. This is fantastic. The pacing was great and stuff. I just feel like by the time you get to this episode, you're kind of like, okay, so where is this going? I'm just kind of confused. We don't really have an arc. We know the mayor is evil, but we haven't seen him in a while. We're kind of missing Faith. They brought back Spike for that one episode. And it was fantastic, but then it's okay, so now what? And so obviously knowing the rest of the season, we're oh yeah, here we are. We're getting into the good stuff. It's going to start after this episode. But I would imagine for a first time viewer, they're okay, so what's happening now? You know what I mean? Bring back Faith, bring back Spike. We want to see more. Okay, so then I really want to talk about this. So Buffy, when she's talking to Giles, and he mentions that someone with a soul killed the kids or might have killed the kids, and Buffy says the whole, can you turn up a loophole on the Slayers don't kill people rule? It's so interesting given that in just a couple of episodes in Bad Girls, we're going to have this dilemma with Faith and Buffy. And you can see Buffy wrestling with the parameters that have been set before her as a Slayer right now and that she set up for herself. And this is part of growing up, questioning the rules and figuring out what you are going to put down as your own personal convictions and rules.
But I also like it because it also humanizes Faith. Like,
Yeah.
I like it because it shows even Buffy has thought about that. Has thought about, like, we're Slayers. Like, we have that power, so do we get to exercise it? And I like it because it's like Buffy ultimately chooses the right path, but it doesn't make Faith look like the worst person ever because Buffy herself has struggled with that. And I think knowing Faith's arc too, you see that, like, she puts up a big front, but, like, that was a huge moment for her. And it takes her years, because I don't know how long she was in jail, and then eventually, I'm pretty sure it was a couple of years. Or like a year at least, because Buffy goes to college.
I think it's 2 years because she went in Buffy season 4, and then we see her again season 7. So it was like 3 years then.
Yeah. So it's like it takes her years to really work through that. Because I think that ultimately Faith agrees. I think that ultimately Faith does agree that, you know, Slayers do have a duty and that they can't just exercise that right. But I think that when she crosses that line of killing that guy, she just goes down a spiral path. But you can really see it weighs on her. I mean, in those episodes in Angel, which again, guys, highly recommend to anyone, she has that weight on her. She knows what she's doing is wrong, but she just keeps doing it.
I think I'm able to have way more empathy for Faith since having the season 6 of Buffy. I think that's why it makes the relationship a little bit more bittersweet in season 7, is because there's a lot of stuff that's unsaid, but we can tell that there's admiration on both ends and there's understanding. Not necessarily like a full-fledged relationship at that point, but there's like respect on both ends. And especially like coming from Buffy too, I feel like she's like able to let go from some things. She's able to talk about Angel with Faith. She's able to like sit there and run things by her. There's a potential for something if the show picked up more, which is always so sad. I'm like, man. But wasn't there supposed to be like a Faith and Spike spinoff? What an odd
Yeah, they were
pairing.
going to have Faith and Spike, which is stupid because
Why not just have
I think
Faith?
Faith and Angel is way
have
more
Faith.
interesting.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that season 3 Faith and season 5 Spike made sense to have a show. But then once you get to season 7 Spike and season 7 Faith, you don't see it. You're like, this would never work. And you also think about it too, and you're like, how chaotic would a show be between Spike and Faith? There would be no good. They're both morally gray characters.
Yeah.
They have similar arcs and I think we've talked about this before. Faith and Spike have similar arcs in the Buffyverse. Faith's is just more well done, which is hilarious because she's in for way less episodes than Spike is.
My biggest beef is the fact that they relied too much on a romance to try and give Spike his redemption.
Yeah.
And it should have been more about Spike's morality and less so about his love for Buffy.
Yeah. And then kind of bringing it back though to this whole thing that Buffy's saying about like, can you find a loophole for me? I think that's also very important in understanding Joyce in this episode too. If Buffy is so swayed by young children dying to the point where she's like, all right, I want to go kill a human, which goes against everything that I stand for. Like, look how devastated she was when she killed Ted or thought she killed Ted and she thought he was human. It's supposed to help us understand and relate more to Joyce and the decisions that Joyce is making in this episode too, because Joyce is over here going, children have died. Let's do something. Let's change it. And if Joyce is willing to like even drug her own daughter, I mean, I'm not justifying Joyce's decision at all because obviously she's clearly like under the influence of someone else again, the demons and stuff. But at least initially early on in the episode before she's fully under their thrall or whatever, the decisions she's making and the fear that she's feeling and the outrage and the anger and all that stuff is fueled from the same place as Buffy in this moment wanting to kill a human, you know? So yeah, I'm excited to explore that a little bit further with Faith and Buffy in a couple of episodes and stuff, because I feel like we've been building up to that. All right. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was how although it's not explicitly stated at this point in the show, witches throughout the entirety of Buffy are often used as a metaphor for lesbians. And the whole idea of alternative lifestyles in this episode, witch hunts, parents abusing their kids for being different, ties in very well with the future episodes with Tara. You have family in season 5 where her family, rejects her and outcasts her for being different. And the metaphor is for being a lesbian. You have season 4 where Willow is wrestling with her sexuality and what she's going to do in season 6 and stuff. So I think it's very interesting how even here before, like, I don't even think they're intentionally trying to do that as a subtext, even though it can come across as that. It's interesting to watch, Willow and Amy being burned at the stake, and both of them are witches. And, this is also the season where they're kind of starting to bring out a little bit more of the hints of Willow's sexuality in season 4 as well. So I just thought that was kind of interesting how they did that.
Unless like there's a subtext with Michael, which we talked about, but I think his is a specific character subtext.
But even then, it's also just the metaphor of sexuality.
Yeah, or even just someone who doesn't fit in with the societal norm. He's not doing things, wearing things that the classic, quotes, normal guy is doing. And so therefore he is going to be ostracized, bullied, abused, made fun of on all that. And so I think Michael's very interesting. He's hardly in this episode, but he could stand in for so many different subtexts and metaphors.
Well, I was about to say, I was like, there's some really good random side characters that I really love. Oh, we're in the spoiler section. I can mention them. Like Larry and Percy and that random dude from like the Fish episode, and Michael and Jonathan. And all these characters they could be played in so many times for random subtext, and they all can fit different ones. And I'm so sad with how sorely underused they are. Most of them are even in just one episode.
Yeah, but at the same time, that could take away, I think we talked about with Dee, that could take away from the core 4. If they added any more, it would have the potential to be overcrammed and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, yes, I would love to see more of these characters explored in other ways. But the idea is that you understand what they stand in for to a lesser extent. And so it doesn't negate their impact. It's just we wish we could see more of it. And that simply could just be that's the story the episode and the show wants to tell at this point, because it's already focusing on so many other equally as important messages too. They kind of just have to pick and choose.
I think about shows because now they're not doing the whole 22 episodes a season thing, because it's like
I'm so
a lot,
glad.
and usually people just watch streaming services. Part of me is kind of sad because I'm like, even though there are filler episodes of Buffy, it's still Buffy, so I enjoy watching it because it's still part of the universe. But sometimes I'm like, man, like we're still like asking for more.
Yeah.
And they've had so much time.
Right.
And then the shows nowadays, I'm like, man, you got to a full arc in a person in 6 episodes. Good job.
Right. Well, this was a shorter episode today, but never fear. Next week is Helpless, and there will be so much to talk about. Thanks so much for listening, you guys, and we will see you next time.